Joseph Skyler Burnley, Sky to those who knew him best, was a 27-year-old from Florence, Mississippi. He was a natural athlete who was very close to his brother and sister. On June 3rd, 2016, Sky, a friend, and the friend's girlfriend went to look for the friend's truck that had been stolen. The two men went into the woods. The friend came back. Sky did not. He was never seen again. I'm Ed Densel, and this is Unfound. Have you ever lost time? What do I mean by that? Have you ever gone to sleep or been knocked out or maybe gotten drunk or otherwise? And when you woke up or got sober or recovered from an illness, you discovered that way more time had passed than you thought. For me, I had that happen in 10th grade. I caught something, the flu, or whatever, and I slept for 36 hours straight. When I woke up, it was 24 hours later than I thought it was. Crazy and creepy. We seem to hear stories like this in the tabloids all the time. Woman wakes up from coma after 10 years, thinking Barack Obama is still president. Man is catatonic for 15 years and wakes up thinking the Pussycat Dolls are still together. And just recently, a real story, a young man woke up after 11 months, not knowing anything about COVID and all the lockdowns. This is a real phenomenon. And truthfully, we're all only on this planet for a certain amount of time. We really don't need to miss any days that are given to us. Well, in the disappearance of Sky Burnley, this seems like a fairly straightforward, but of course tragic case. Young man walks into the woods and doesn't come back. But when a particular fact is looked at more closely, could the key to the resolution involve finding the lost day? And now a summary of the case. This is brought to you by my friend Megan Good's website, Charley Project. .org. Sky Burnley was the oldest of 3 children, with all of them being raised primarily by their mother. He excelled in school and sports, and he had high hopes of joining the military after high school. However, after graduation, in an incident that is still unclear, Sky got caught with Xanax and was charged with a drug felony. He spent 2 years in jail, dashing dreams he had for his future. While in jail, Sky was forced to join a gang, the Simon City Royals, for his own protection. However, there is no proof Sky continued this affiliation upon becoming a free man at the age of 20. During the next 7 years, Sky worked construction and became a born-again Christian in 2015, along with his girlfriend, who he was dating at the time of his disappearance. Sky had also taken on the responsibility of caring for his 94-year-old grandmother, living with her most of the time. So, on June 2nd, 2016, Sky was with his friend Travis Brewer, Travis's girlfriend Amanda, and their child. Sky spent the night at their place. Sometime during that night, Travis's truck was stolen. On June 3rd, in an effort to find the vehicle, they allegedly used a phone tracking app. The reason being that Travis said his phone was in his truck. The pinging of the phone led them to Bridges Road in Rankin County. Amanda stayed with her child in her car, while Travis went one direction off the road and Sky went the other. In a short while, Travis came back, but Sky did not. He was never seen again. 2 days later, law enforcement used horses, dogs, and helicopters in an effort to find Sky, with no luck. Matthew McCoy and his girlfriend were arrested for the theft of Travis's truck, which was found. Strangely, though, Travis's phone was not in the truck. It was discovered in the grass just down the street from his house. Crime Watch Daily featured Sky's disappearance in June 2019. However, their coverage did not seem to move the investigation forward. So, Unfound will give it our best shot. And that starts by posing these 3 questions to you, the listeners. Number 1, how did Travis use a phone tracking app to lead him to Bridges Road when his phone was nowhere near there? Number 2, why did Matthew McCoy or his girlfriend not spend 1 day in jail for the theft of Travis's truck? And number 3, why has law enforcement ignored the fact that the date on a convenience store video is not the correct day of the disappearance? Sky's family absolutely believes he disappeared due to foul play. The guest for this episode is Sky's mother, Stacy Humble. Unfound News. I hope you all enjoyed my appearance on John Lorden's show on YouTube last Friday. Using the audio from the interview with Kent Landry, Jason's father, Unfound will be releasing its own special episode this coming Monday, February 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern. The interview will then be followed by analysis from yours truly, where I will be revealing what you might call a theory regarding why initial searches are often unsuccessful. Next, for all of you premium Patreon supporters out there, the next Unfound on the Ground will take place on February 22nd, 2021 at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time. The topic will be part 2 of Eric's presentation on geography and mapping for missing persons cases. If you are not yet a Patreon member, please consider becoming one at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Finally, and also on February 22nd, but earlier in the evening at 7 p.m. Eastern, I will have my next interview with Dr. Grace Telesco on her YouTube channel. I anticipate no conflict between this interview and Unfound on the Ground, given that my shows with Grace have never been more than 1 hour in length. That leaves 45 minutes from 8 until 8:45 for all of you on the ground members to relax, go to the bathroom, get a drink, etc. However, it will be a busy night for me. I better get my sleep. Where you can find Unfound. Unfound supports accounts on Podomatic, iTunes, Stitcher, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Deezer, Facebook, and YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, please join us on our podcast channel for the Unfound Live Show. All of you can talk with me, and I can answer your questions. Contribute to Unfound at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You can also contribute at PayPal, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. And do not forget the website, theunfoundpodcast.com. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the mother of Sky Burnley, Stacy Humble. Stacy, welcome to Unfound.
Thank you. Thank you for covering Sky's story.
You're very welcome. Let's start here, as we usually do when we have a mother, father, family member on the program. Let's talk a little bit about your family, Stacy. How many children do you have? How would you describe Sky compared to your other children? What was or is your home like?
I have 3 children. Growing up, you could not have 2 boys and 1 daughter. Growing up, they have always been inseparable. Wherever one was, the other 2 were.
Mm-hmm.
They were always, the 2 boys were always picking on their sister, which is one of those things.
Huh.
But you let anybody do something to one of them, and you were up against all three of them.
I bet.
They were very close, and Sky and his brother were, I mean, even when they were grown, they were both inseparable.
Mm-hmm. And what are the Sky? Where does he fall in the line of your three children? Youngest, oldest, middle?
He was the oldest. He was the big brother.
Wow.
He was the big brother.
Okay.
Then it was his brother. Then it was his sister.
Okay. And what are the age? You know, maybe not exact ages, but what is the age spread from oldest to youngest?
Sky and his brother were not but 17 months apart.
Oh, very close.
So they were like, I mean, they did everything together. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Their sister, there is 9 years difference between them on their sister.
Oh, okay.
So they just, the two boys were, like I said, they hunted together, they fished together, they did everything together.
And I guess this young sister never had to worry about anybody giving her any problems with two brothers who were 9 years older than her. So, you know, so she's 10, they're 19, no. She's 13, they're 22, you know.
Oh, no, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. They would tell her, I mean, Sky would call her up and say, he would even tell her if he knew she were talking to somebody, you don't need to be talking to them. I don't want you talking to them. Mm-hmm. Well, why not? You don't need to be talking to them. I mean, yeah, they always looked out for her.
Uh-huh. Very protective. Maybe I should ask you this.
Very protective.
Okay. Maybe I should ask you this. Of course, we are calling your son Sky for the purposes of this interview. My understanding is that's the name everybody called him, but his full name is Joseph Skyler Burnley. Why did he not go by his first name? Do you know?
He was named after his granddaddy. We always called him Skyler from the day he was born.
But you chose to give...
That's just what we decided.
Okay. So you made Skyler his middle name, but that's what everybody ended up calling him.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Just thought I want to ask that. I'm sure the listeners are probably maybe wondering why, because sometimes that happens. We have people on the program, and they have their official, names on the birth certificates, and then they end up going by some nickname or something, and that's usually what you use. Okay.
Well, we started out, he was called Skyler, and then when he started playing ball and all of that, he went by Sky.
All right. Neat. All right, let's talk about him exclusively. You just mentioned sports, and what were his interests? What would you say his personality was like? Let's talk a little bit about him. Maybe as a teenager, late teens. How would you describe him?
My other two would get so upset because he was one of these that never had to study.
Oh.
Never had to study for anything. The teacher would look at me when he was growing up. She'd say, Stacey, I thought I had him in class because he's looking out the window, and I'd ask him a question, and he would just call it off. He never had to study. He never had to pick up a book. He was like that with sports as well. Any kind of ball, he was, like my dad said one time, he was the athlete that you see once in a lifetime.
Huh.
He could play any sport, and he excelled at it. He was always like that.
Mm-hmm.
His personality, Skyler was the life of the party. He never met a stranger. He would walk up and have a conversation to anybody. It didn't matter what you had, who you were, how much money you had. He didn't care. He was friends with everybody. And that's one thing we've learned through this journey of him coming up missing. We've found out heard some really great stories about him growing, some things we didn't know.
Yeah. And that does happen. That does happen after the fact. Yeah.
Well, he loved to fish, hunt, sports, anything like that. Swimming. He was great.
Okay. So, being that he did well, it sounds like he did well in school. Did he graduate high school? What did he do after that?
Yes, sir. He was going to go into the military He wanted to do military police. Then he wanted to get out, when he got out of the finish with the military, he wanted to go to college and play baseball, and then he wanted to get done and coach. He wanted to coach high school ball.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so that's what he did. What about work? Once again, we'll gradually work our way up to the age that he was at the time of his disappearance. But what about work? After high school, or did he have a job in high school, early 20s? What did he do for that?
No, sir, he didn't. He fished and did all that. He was getting ready when he was 18 to join them. Like I said, he wanted to do military, go into the military. Then he was going to be military police. When he finished that, he wanted to go to college after that and get a degree where he could coach. He wanted to teach and coach ball out of high school.
Okay. But he didn't end up going into the military?
No, sir.
Why was that?
He ended up, you always tell your children, don't do something, you're going to be somewhere at the wrong time.
Yeah.
He was getting ready to go and went to a fair and got, when he was going to his car, he got picked up. And he served 2 years.
For doing what?
In possession of Xanax.
Wow.
First offense.
How did he end up getting caught like that?
I have no idea. They walked up to him and said, we heard you had something. He threw them. And when he threw them, they handcuffed him. He was going to give them to him.
When this
he
happened...
He was getting in the car and get ready to... Sir?
When that happened,
Sorry.
That's fine. When that happened, were you surprised by that?
Yes, sir. I was very surprised. Because he had never had an arrest. He had never had... And I know he did things. I know my child was not the perfect one. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he did things. But yes, sir, I was very surprised that he did that and that he went down on that on first offense.
After this happened, did he come clean with you as to how long this had been going on, or did you ever find that out? You mentioned that his brother, they were very close. Did his brother know anything about this? I mean, what did you find out about this after the fact?
Well, they were all drinking at a fair. They were at a fair, and everybody was drinking. And he was talking to his car when it happened, and he had 10.
Mm-hmm.
He'd never been in trouble, like I said, for anything.
Mm-hmm. So after the fact, he never told you, for just as an example, Ma, I've been doing this for 2 years, or something like that. No idea?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
I do not. Like I said, he had never even had a speeding ticket.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds to me like somebody ratted him out, or was he on the police, law enforcement's radar? I mean, how do you look like that it just happened to...
I think he was somewhere where they were watching a cabin, and I think they wanted him to tell them that this guy, and I don't think he did because he was scared.
Mm-hmm. So they wanted him to roll over on somebody else.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And he told me he would not do it. He told me, I'm scared. I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm. So he ended up going to jail for 2 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How old was he when he went in?
He was 18.
18, wow. Probably your daughter being 9 years younger, hard to relate to that. But what about his brother? Did you ever get the idea? Do you think that his brother was as surprised by this as you were?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we haven't talked about, at this point, Sky's father. Is he in the picture? What did he have to say about this? What was his attitude?
No, sir, he was not. We were divorced since the children were small.
Okay. All right. So he goes in. I have to say, I mean, I'm no expert in this particular area, but getting caught with that and getting sentenced to 2 years sounds unusually harsh.
That's what everybody has told us as well.
Well, what was the explanation?
That's what everybody has told us.
What was the explanation for that?
They told us he never would. They made an example out of him.
Okay. All right. Did anybody else involved with?
Election year.
It was in an election year. Okay. Did anybody else affiliated with Sky go to jail also?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure that broke your heart. He had plans, was not able to fulfill them. He goes to jail for 2 years. How were those 2 years? You having to, go see him at the jail? What was that like?
They were bad because since that happened, they shut that place down about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Due to what all was going on there. It was bad. It was bad.
Rough place.
For kids, a rough place.
Yeah.
A rough place for kids because it was under 21 years of age.
Okay. All right, so he's in there. All right, and he's in there, and he's toughing it out. And when he came out 2 years later, what kind of person was he? What did he end up doing then?
He ended up going into construction. Because he could not go to college due to having the felony. He basically lost everything he had dreamed and everything he had wanted to do with his life, he lost in one night.
Wow. Now that you look back at it now, if he was 18 at the time, and he disappeared in 2016 when he was 27, so that happened 9 years. So that would have been 2007. You've had many years to look back at that particular period. Was he doing that for the money, or did he have an addiction? What do you think?
No, sir. He wasn't doing it for the money. No, sir.
What was it then?
No, sir. I think he was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and I think he got 10 Xanax.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they knew that he'd come out of that house. And I think they got him. Like I said, they said, well, we heard you had some Xanax. And this is my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned around, he said, yeah, and he threw them, giving them to him, and just threw them to him. And that's when they put the handcuffs on him. He was going to give them to him.
Okay. So he gets
no money in exchange thing.
Okay. So he gets out of jail. He goes into construction. And how would you say he was after getting out of jail? How was he doing?
It was different. I mean, he would hit his highs and his lows. I mean, he would get disappointed in himself because he'd be like, I can't do what I wanted to do. I can't do what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
He would get down and out sometimes about it. And I'll say, you can do whatever you want to do. You can get out of this. It's going to be okay. But he would beat himself up over it. Because like I said, he could not go to college. He could not teach. He could not be in a school. He could not, anything that he had ever dreamed of, he couldn't do.
Okay.
So, he struggled with it.
All right. So he gets out. Does he have any relationships, girlfriend, any children during those next 7 years before he disappears?
No, sir. He did not. Now, he had girlfriends, yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And something
he has one.
Please.
Sir, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead, please.
He has one child that we have found out that he has. We found out about it about a year ago.
Wow.
And yeah.
So after. Wow. So 4 years after he disappeared, I guess a young woman came forward saying, yeah, this is Sky's child.
Yes, sir. I had reached out to her a couple of years ago, and she was with, I don't know what the circumstances were, but she reached back out to me about a year ago, and we went and had DNA tests done, and he is Sky's little boy.
And do you get to see that child now?
I get to see him some, not like I would like to, but I do get to see him some.
Okay. All right, so you had some relationships. You know, we would never give out the child's name or anything like that. But how old is this child now?
He is 7.
7. So he would have just been like
Yes.
2 years old at the time of Sky's
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Now, something also that I think is going to play a role maybe in this is that you've told me that Sky was very close with his grandmother.
Oh, yes, sir. Very, very close to his grandmother.
Is that your mother?
No, sir. That's his dad's mother.
Huh. Okay.
He was close to her from the day he was born. She loved him better than anything, and I guess it's been, well, it was probably 2 years before Sky came up missing. They were talking about putting her in a nursing home, his dad and his family was, and Sky said, no, you're not putting my mama in a nursing home. He went and got her, and she was 94 years old at the time, and he was her primary caregiver.
Wow.
He moved her. He took care of her. He said, she will not go into a nursing home as long as I live. And to me, that defines Sky, the type of person he was, because not many kids that looked like he did and that had the outgoing personality that he did would all of a sudden jump in and be the primary caregiver for a 94-year-old grandmother.
Right. Wow, okay. And so was he living with her, or was he just seeing her every day? What was the situation?
No. She was not even in shape to where, she was dependent on Sky for everything.
Wow.
We had even tried to, I talked to him, and he had talked to some people about getting home health to come in. She didn't want home health to come in. She didn't want this. She did not want anybody. She was scared they were going to take her money. So he took care of her. He did everything for her.
Wow. Okay. And what town would this have been in where he was taking care of his grandmother?
In Florence, Mississippi.
Florence, Mississippi. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's move on to this, and being that we've already talked about him going to jail for 2 years, having those Xanax, which of course Xanax are not illegal, but if you have them and you're not supposed to have them, that could be problems, and that sounds like
well, back then it was illegal. But while he was in, they actually changed the law, and he still didn't get out.
Okay. Now, when he got out of jail, I just have to ask, did he ever go back to jail for anything?
No, sir.
Okay. And being, once again, that this is a drug charge, once he got out, and once again in those next 7 years before he went missing, did he have any addictions to anything that you knew about, or maybe that you found out about after the fact?
No, it's like, the thing about it is, Skyler, to me, now this is in my frame of mind. To me, somebody that's addicted has to have it. I worked in the medical field for years, and if you have an addiction, you have to have it. You have to have it daily. He wasn't like that.
Okay.
If he fell off the wagon or anything like that, he'd be right back. He could go years at a time.
So would you say that he was doing drugs during that time, up until his disappearance?
I know, because he was saved. I think he had some problems and got down on himself again.
Mm-hmm.
But when he was saved prior to coming up missing. Mm-hmm. And I have his Bible. That's the one thing that I wanted. Right. That was his. Because his Bible was laying out on his bed, and Joshua 1:9 was highlighted. Mm-hmm. He was saved. He would sit up with his girlfriend reading the Bible. They would read the Bible with her little boy. Mm. I don't know what happened. I mean, I don't know what happened.
Okay. Let's move on to this. And being that he was, and this is public information, so I have to ask about it. But while he was in jail, did he join in a gang?
Yes, sir. One of the things that since Sky came up missing, somebody reached out to me, and the one thing you would just have to know Sky. I mean, his personality was just, he refused to join a gang when he was in there. And this boy that reached out to me, he said, I just felt like I needed to tell you he did not want to join. And I told him, this is being the guy that called me, he said, I told him if he did not join in here, he would not make it out of here. Mm. I even asked somebody that I know, and I said, is it true that he would not have made, he said, Stacy, he would have never made it out of that place. I said, this is kids. He said he never would have made it out of there. Okay.
And what gang would this have been?
SCR.
What you're going to have to probably say the full name for those of us.
Simon City Royal.
Okay. All right. And once again, to your knowledge, I realize you were not around him every second once he got out of jail. But for those next 7 years, do you believe he had any contact with anybody in the gang? Did he commit any crimes with this gang? Was he involved with it in any way? Once again, to your knowledge.
No, sir. And I've even asked this question, and it's no, sir. And that's a definite.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to this. And this is taking us up, much closer to the time of his disappearance. But it is something that, in our previous conversation, Stacy, that I think stood very prominent in my mind, was this pullover story that it seems to me all these years later, we're still not exactly clear on all of it. I have it in my notes that it happened 2 weeks before he went missing. Why don't you explain this pullover story? He allegedly got pulled over, but there's no paperwork, etc. Why don't you explain that to the listeners?
Yes, sir. 2 weeks prior, approximately 2 weeks prior to him coming up missing, he was pulled over. And he was pulled over in Brandon, Mississippi, and Brandon supposedly took him to Pearl, Mississippi, which Pearl is in Rankin County as well. He was supposedly pulled over for a suspended driver's license. I had asked about it because I already knew about it. And when he came up missing, I asked about it, and they couldn't find any records on it. And I said, well, we know he got pulled over because, there were people that had to go get him. Mm-hmm. Well, there's no record of it. We can't find anything, Stacy. Well, there's 2 witnesses. He called his girlfriend at the time and told her that he had been picked up and that they told him he had a suspended license. They took him in, and he kept telling her, I paid it. I'm taking care of this. And she got up there. She had to pay them $100, which she told me, this is Skyler's girlfriend. She said, I thought that was very strange because they let me get Sky. I paid them $100 cash, and somebody that worked with him actually drove his truck away from there. And she said they didn't impound the truck or anything, and I thought that was strange. Mm-hmm. But they cannot find one record of any of this. I've even asked, well, now you have witnesses, cash exchanged hands, and there's no documentation. Nothing.
Mm-hmm. Where did this girlfriend pick him up at?
Pick him up at the Pearl Police Department.
Pearl Police Department. Okay, in Pearl, Mississippi.
Yes, sir.
And is it your understanding, was this like the same day? He got pulled over and got picked up at the police department on the same day?
Yes, sir.
All right, it wasn't like he spent overnight in jail or anything like that?
No, sir. No,
Okay.
sir. He immediately called her when they got him to Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
He called her. She went and picked up somebody that worked, I think it was his boss's cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And they drove up there together. She paid them, according to her, the $100. And she got Scott, and the other guy drove his truck home.
Okay. Do you, at that point, your understanding, did he end up getting, we know this is 2 weeks before he went missing, but to your knowledge, did that ever get straightened out? Was his license ever figured out, or was his license still suspended at the time of his disappearance?
His license was not suspended
Wasn't
at the time
at all.
of his disappearance.
Okay.
No.
And so what you're also saying is it was not suspended at the time he got pulled over?
No, sir, I do not believe it was.
Okay. Did Sky ever tell his girlfriend, and we're not going to mention her name, or you, or his brother, or anybody else, do you think this
yes,
was
sir,
a
he had called
I guess
he had called his brother, sir.
Please.
He had called his brother prior to all of this. His brother, and I don't know how to put this, but he had his brother's checkbook. His brother had left his checkbook with him, with Skyler.
Okay.
And Skyler had called his brother. This was, I don't even know how many weeks before this was. And asked his brother about writing a check out because he needed to go get his license. The only check that was missing out of my other son's checkbook was to the Mississippi Department of Transportation for Skyler's license.
Do you know if that check ever got
So
cashed?
he had paid for it.
Okay. And so that check did get cashed?
Yes, by the Mississippi Department. Yes, sir.
Okay. But the issue, though, is that Sky was believing, I guess, that his license was not suspended. The police said it was suspended. Do you believe that this was just some paperwork snafu or something else?
Sir, I honest to goodness, I do not even know what to even think.
All right.
Because, his girlfriend went there and paid the same amount that he had rented. So, I don't understand that, and there's no documentation, so that's one thing I don't understand. And nobody seems to be able to give any answers on it.
Okay. So, maybe just I'll try to simplify this, I guess, for the listeners, is that Sky's driving along, he gets pulled over for some reason. I don't even know, what they wouldn't necessarily know that he had his license, even if it's true or not true. He would have had to have committed some other traffic violation for them to even find that out. We don't even know what that is, right?
Yeah, he was just pulled over. She said,
okay.
His girlfriend said he was just pulled over in Brandon, and Brandon transported him to Pearl.
Okay, but she was not with him. She's just going by what Sky said.
Yes, sir.
All right, he was by himself when he got pulled over.
I believe she was with him.
Oh, she was? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so...
Because he kept telling her he had taken care of them. That's the one thing she told me. She said, Miss Stacy, he kept telling me, I've taken care of this. I've taken care of this. And she knew nothing about the checkbook or anything as far as that check was written out of the checkbook.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused here, Stacy, because if she was with him, then they would just take her, and then she wouldn't need to call somebody to go pick up the truck because she would be in the truck.
They didn't know. I don't know exactly what happened. I really don't.
All right,
I don't know if I don't know on that. I really don't.
All right, that's probably something that seems a little foggy to me, but I think the point we're trying to make here is that it seems there's a situation where he got pulled over for a suspended license that might not have been suspended, but almost 4.5, almost 5 years later, there's no documentation you've ever been shown that was what actually happened.
They can't find any documentation.
Can't find it. Well, they can't find it. That doesn't mean, of course, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but they can't find it. Okay? And we're just not quite sure. Maybe there's a perfectly logical explanation, but I thought we needed to talk about it, being that this happened a couple weeks just before he disappeared. Kind of.
Yes, sir.
It seems the story still seems a little vague 4.5 years later. All right, you did mention Sky's brother, and he left his checkbook.
Yes,
my understanding that his brother was in the military, and he went back into the service, and he left Sky this checkbook. If you can say how much money was in the checkbook, and how long was it before Sky went missing? That his brother went back in. Talk a little bit about that.
When Sky's brother left, going back to Iraq, he left Sky his checkbook, and he said, if you need anything, if Mama, which Mama was what he called his grandmother, needs anything, or Mama or anybody needs anything, all you have to do is write a check. When Sky came up missing, that's the one thing I think everybody hopped up when they realized Sky had access to whatever money he wanted. There was a lot of money in that account. And nothing was, the checkbook was sitting up in his room, and his Bible was opened up on his bed. His bed was made up. But there were thousands of dollars in this checking account. And nothing was written out of it except for the one check on Skyler's driver's license. Okay.
So what we're saying here is that it sounds to me like Sky was very disciplined with his brother's money. It wasn't a situation, as we would probably suspect, if Sky was underhanded or he had an addiction or something. We know how fast that money would disappear. And what you know is that, except for this check that he wrote for this driver license thing, he didn't use any of that money at all.
None of it. And the one thing about it that I think his brother addressed on Crime Watch Daily when it was on, his brother did an interview with them, and like he said, his brother worked offshore. He and Sky lived together, and Sky wrote all the bills out. He paid all the bills. Sky worked in construction. His brother worked on an oil rig, worked offshore. Sky never took any money. He said, I depended on him to write, to pay the bill.
Okay.
And that's one thing that his brother had said on Crime Watch Daily on that interview, that he said he wouldn't take anything from anybody.
Okay. All right. So to me, that shows that Sky was not really having a lot of issues in his life, because as we all know, as we've heard many times on this program and other situations, that unfortunately some of these missing people who are not very disciplined at all. And this guy seems like a different type of person here. Okay. All right, now we're just...
I mean, he was...
Please.
Sir? I'm sorry.
That's all right, please. What were you going to say?
No, Sky was he was very, very, I talked to him the week before, and it was raining, so they couldn't work. They were framing a house, and he was eating bologna sandwiches every day.
Okay.
He was very, he could make it. If he had to make it, he could make it.
Okay. All right, now we're just going to mention some names. We're just going to talk about these people in general terms. We will get into specifics of them later. But the first name I'm going to mention, and these are names that are out there in the public now, but I just want to cover them a little bit now. Travis Brewer. How did Sky and Travis know each other? Would you call them close friends? Just in general, who is Travis Brewer?
I had never heard him even mention Travis Brewer. The way he met Travis Brewer was he worked on vehicles for people sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And from our understanding, that's why he was over there at his house when he came up missing, because he had some things going wrong with his truck, cranking, and he was getting Travis to look at it.
All right, so Travis, to be clear, we don't want to get confused with the pronouns. So Travis was the one who worked on cars, and Sky is the one who wanted Travis to look at his truck.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I mean, he knew Travis from him working on vehicles. He had worked on a vehicle at Skyler's uncle's house about 2 years before Sky came up missing. So he knew who he was, but it was not a main person he hung out with. Okay. I guess is what I need to say.
All right. But once again, you had never even heard Travis Brewer's name until after Sky went missing.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's move on to this guy's name, Matthew McCoy. Kind of the same thing. Had never heard of him until Sky went missing.
I had never heard his name, period. And as far as I know, nobody else had either.
Okay.
They said they knew that Travis had worked on vehicles for his uncle and for him in the past, but nobody's ever heard Matthew McCoy's name.
Okay. Is there even any proof that Sky and Matthew had ever met each other at all? Any proof of that?
No, sir. There's no proof of that.
Okay. Let's move it on to this. You did say that Sky had a girlfriend at the time. I would never, not saying you have to say her name, but how long were they going out? How often did they see each other? What do you know about that?
They saw each other basically every day.
Wow.
She and Sky were recently, October of 2015. Both of them were saved together at the same church. Went to church and got saved together. Like I said, she told me they did so many things together, and it was all about. God didn't ever believe on giving up on anybody. He thought everybody had good in them. You just had to look for it in some.
Okay. So they were a couple since 2015. So they'd been together for a little while.
Well, they were a couple before that.
Okay.
They were together probably, I would say probably 2.5 years.
Wow. Okay. And being that Sky was taking care of his grandmother, do you think she was going over there and staying there as well?
Oh,
or?
yes, sir.
Okay, so they
She
were.
She would go over there and see Sky. They would cook for his mama and do things for his mama. But like she told me, he always called her and let her know where he was, what time he would be there.
Okay.
The last call on his phone was to his mama.
Okay. Speaking of the phone, just in general, we'll talk about it a lot more later, but would you say that Sky used his phone often, every day, like using
yes,
texting, calling, apps, etc.?
Absolutely. And he kept it on him all the time because of his grandmother.
Okay. And so we've already talked about so you would say in general that Sky was living with his what you're calling his mama at the time? That's what you would say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he was with her all. He cooked for her. He did everything for her.
Okay. Now, what about you? Of course, you're Sky's mother. How often did you see him or talk to him generally around that time of, 2016? How often did he come over to see you? Did you live close to each other? What was the situation?
We did not live close to each other, but we talked all the time. He was actually supposed to come help me move that Saturday.
Okay. All right. So how far did you live away from where he was staying with his grandmother?
About an hour and a half.
About an hour and a half. When would you say was the last time you saw Sky before he went missing? How long before that?
A couple of weeks.
All right. So he's working in construction. He has this girlfriend for 2.5 years. It sounds like they're close. She's even helping him take care of his grandmother. And things seem fine. He has this money that his brother left him in case anything bad happens. But, of course, he didn't tap into that. So we come up here to June 2nd. And, of course, this is now well after he was well after when he was in jail. But things seemed, it seems, although he didn't get to go to the military and do some of these things, sounds like he got a lot of stuff straightened out. And almost 5 years later, we're doing this interview on February 8th, 2021. Do we know anything about Sky's movements for that day? We'll talk about the video later, but do we know anything about Sky's movements for the day of June 2nd, 2016?
No, sir.
Did his girlfriend, I'm guessing that you've maybe kept in contact with his girlfriend. Did she see him that day? Did he start out the day at the grandmother's? Did she see him? Did she talk to him? Anybody talk to him on the phone, text? Did he have to go to work that day? Any of that? Anything at all?
She talked to him. His girlfriend was out of town. His grandmother, that was the last phone call he made on June. That was June the 2nd. He had texted me on June the 2nd and told me he loved me, and that's all I have. That's it.
Okay. And what were the times and dates, or we know the date, but the times of those communications?
He had texted his grandmother on the 2nd that evening. He had texted me also that evening.
Okay.
No, early evening.
All right, so let's maybe say like 6 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That text, all it did was say, I love you. Did you find that unusual? Did you find that strange?
I did, and I tried to call him back and couldn't get him.
Okay.
But I knew he was going to be coming to help me move. And needless to say, he didn't.
Okay, so it was just, once again, just to be very specific on this, when he texted you that early evening, it was just those 3 words. It wasn't, hey, Mom, I'm here doing this. I love you. It was just, I love you, 3 words.
No, I love you, Mom.
I love you, Mom. Okay. But no other context?
He said no.
No. Okay.
No.
No context to where he was or what he was doing or who he was with?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, so that's June 2nd of 2016. Being, once again, that I'm guessing you talked to his girlfriend. I don't know what kind of relationship you have with her now. But where did she think he was on June 2nd? Being that she was out of town, where did she think he was on June 2nd? Any ideas?
He had told her he was going over to Travis Brewer's to have some work done on his vehicle.
Okay. All right. So let's move up to now June 3rd. And what we're going to do first is we're going to go just through the quote-unquote official story. And then, of course, afterwards, we will talk about maybe some of the flaws of this timeline. We'll eventually get to that. But what is the timeline, the official timeline? And let's just start with the stolen truck. Let's start. You can start the timeline there, and what happens
on the stolen truck?
Yeah, we're going to start there with Matthew McCoy stealing Travis. Once again, between us, I realize that there's reasons that makes me think something else is going on, but this is the official story that is out there right now.
in 2021 regarding the stolen truck. Start there. When was Travis's truck stolen? Who stole it, etc.?
Supposedly it was stolen on the morning of the 3rd. And from my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked Skyler to go with him to help him find the truck.
Okay.
And one of the things that was on Skyler's phone was how to ping an iPhone location.
Okay.
Well, and because supposedly Travis Brewer's phone was in the truck when it was stolen.
Mm-hmm.
They went. Is this where you want me to go with this?
I will jump in right here and say so. In the early morning hours of June 3rd, Matthew McCoy, along with his girlfriend at the time, steal Travis Brewer's truck. To your knowledge, Matthew and Travis friends, enemies? Do you have any idea?
To my understanding, they're friends.
Okay. And when the truck gets stolen, once again, I realize you weren't there, but to the best of your understanding, when does Travis realize that his truck has been stolen?
When they get up on the morning of the 3rd.
Okay. And so Sky is there.
Yes.
So Sky is over at Travis's, and while they're asleep, Matthew allegedly shows up with his girlfriend and steals Travis's truck. Does Travis, at that point, that morning of June 3rd, which is a Friday, does he make a call to 911 saying his truck has been stolen or anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay. But instead, as you stated, it seems using Sky's phone, he does a search for how to track a lost iPhone.
Yes, sir, but he did not download the app onto his phone.
Onto Travis's phone.
The app, he was just searching on his phone on how to locate you can't locate, supposedly, a burn phone. Supposedly only you can do a smartphone.
Right. Okay. So what happens next? So Travis notices his truck is stolen. Sky's there. Now Travis also has a girl there as well, Amanda, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Amanda has a child. And what do they do? Allegedly.
They all get in her car and supposedly head out to find the truck.
Okay. And there is a video, and we'll come back to this video later, but allegedly there's a video of them that day of June 3rd at a convenience store. You've seen this video?
Yes, sir.
All right. And is Sky and Travis on it?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
And the little girl.
Okay. And they are in whose vehicle?
Amanda Morris.
All right. And that is Travis's girlfriend. And do you know if Amanda's child, is that Travis's child or not? Do you know?
Yes, they had Travis's child was in the store with them.
Okay, so Travis and Amanda have a child together. Okay. What do you remember, if you have in your notes there, what time, we'll get back to the date later, but what time of day was it that they were allegedly at this convenience store?
Around 9:40 something in the morning.
Okay. All right, so we can see a scenario. Travis gets up. His truck is missing. I don't know if it's clear who he thought stole it, but he doesn't call it in, which seems kind of strange to me. But they decide that they're going to try to track the truck using Travis's phone, which was in his truck.
Yes.
All right.
Which is strange.
All right. Well, yeah, we're just going by the official story. We're going to explain why some of these things don't quite make sense eventually. But I just want everybody to understand the official story that they are going to see in quite a few different places. All right. So they get up. They decide they're going to take it into their own hands of trying to track this truck down using this app, believing that Travis's phone is in this truck. They go to this convenience store, and where does this trip, 3 adults and 1 child, where does this trip take them?
To Bridges Road, supposedly.
Okay. And there just happens to be a video on a house there, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what does that video show?
Shows that car pulling into Bridges Road, Amanda Morris's car pulling into Bridges Road.
Okay. Is it your understanding that the reason they went onto Bridges Road is because that's where the phone was pinging from?
That is what we were told.
All right. And
that's Travis Brewer's story.
okay. And we'll get back to, once again, the reason some of these things may have some flaws in them. So they're at the convenience store. Then what we would say very quickly after that, they are seen on the video of this house. For whatever reason, this house has video outside, I don't know. And so what is the story that Travis tells later? They get out there, and what happens?
He said that him and Skyler got out of the vehicle. Skyler went one way and he went the other. And he came back around and he couldn't find Skyler. He got back to the car, and Amanda, which was his girlfriend, or his wife, and the child were in the car. They said they were hot. Mm-hmm. They had no air conditioner in the car. So he supposedly took left and took them home.
And left Sky there. Couldn't find him, left him there.
Yes.
Off of Bridges Road. And listeners should know I will be doing a map video on YouTube to explain some of these things. I think this is very important in this particular case. All right. So they go out to the woods. Do you have any idea how long Travis was out in the woods before he came back? Does the video show how long they were in the woods before they came back out of the woods in the car?
Nobody's ever really said.
All right. So it could be 10 minutes. It could be an hour.
It wasn't long.
Wasn't long. Okay. So only Travis comes back, and because Amanda and her child are hot, they leave Sky there. And we really are still not sure. I guess what you're saying is how long they were actually out there. Travis was out there in the woods before they came back out. To your knowledge, after Travis went back with Amanda and her child, did he ever drive back out there himself? Did he ever try to call Sky, anything like that?
He did not. He came back. They spotted the car coming back out there again. Mm-hmm. Which he said he came back out there to look for Sky. But the strange thing was, they said this is a dead end road. They said he never. It's like he went up the road and turned around and came right back out. He didn't have time to look for Sky. So that's always been a question, too. Mm-hmm. Why did he even go back out there when he just turns around and comes right back out?
Okay, so what you're saying is he goes by this house, you see the video, and then let's just say a minute later the car comes back going the opposite direction.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, then we have to talk about this. There is a note, and unfortunately we don't know when it was written, but it's presumably after Travis went out there the second time by himself, made that very quick stop there. Sometime after that, he went to Sky's uncle's house, and what did he do?
Sky's uncle he had been over there to work on a car 2 years before Sky came up missing. Mm-hmm. For Sky's uncle. So he knew where his uncle lived, so he drove over there and left a note, not knowing that Sky's uncle was in Florida and they would not get back until the 4th. Mm. The note said, "This is Travis Brewer, Sky's friend. I'm worried something bad has happened to Sky," and he put 2 numbers at the bottom of the envelope.
Wow. So he kind of just put this on the outside of the door, like in the door jamb or something like that?
Yes, sir. And his uncle found it on Saturday morning of the 4th when he got back home from Florida from vacation.
Okay.
That's why we don't have a time on
Right.
the note.
Okay. How far does the uncle live away from Bridges Road?
He lives in Pearl, Mississippi. He probably lives 20 minutes.
Okay. So Travis, seemingly, I mean, he did. I mean, that was there. We can't deny that. It's in his writing. It has his phone numbers on it. We got to believe that he was the one that left the note. So he kind of maybe does the responsible thing. Maybe doesn't know the uncle's phone number. Maybe doesn't know your number. But he tries to let somebody know something's going on. But at any time before that note showed up there, did Travis ever call 911 to say that Sky was missing? Did he ever even call 911 about his truck?
Not to our knowledge.
Okay. All right. So we have to remember, at least at this point, late June 3rd of 2016, that now Sky is missing, and it doesn't seem like when they went out there they found the truck either. So we move into June 4th. That's when the note was found. But at the same time, the truck was found. Where was it found? Who found it? Where was it?
Travis Brewer found it. To my knowledge, that's who found it.
Okay.
It's on the side of 20. On the side of 20.
Mm-hmm.
And it was beat up on both sides.
Okay. Was it not like that when it got stolen?
No, sir.
All right. So whoever stole it, we now know Matthew McCoy did it, but we'll get to that in a second. So seemingly after Matt took it, he damaged it, wrecked it up.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did Travis come across his truck by accident? Do you even know how? Did he use this pinging mechanism? Do you even know how he ended up finding his own truck?
I have no idea, sir.
All right.
No, I don't.
So the police have never told you that 4.5 years later?
No, sir.
Okay. Would you say that your understanding of where the truck was it kind of near Bridges Road? Kind of? Even within a few miles?
It was found on the side of 20, which the highway that runs parallel to Bridges Road was 20.
Okay.
But it was found in a direction going towards Hines Community College on that side. I don't know exactly how far that is.
Okay. So maybe in the general area, but not the specific area?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And once again, I'll be doing a map so people can see this.
Okay.
All right. And so the truck, do you know when he found it? Was it Saturday morning that Travis found it?
He found it that day.
Because
Because when he called in and called 911, to my understanding was he found his truck.
All right. So he did end up calling 911, but not until after he found his truck.
Yes, sir. That's what he said in the call to 911.
Okay. Was anybody with him when they found the truck? Did it get towed? What is the situation? What was the situation?
I don't even know who was with it. He found it. It was not towed.
Okay. But at any time, when he called 911, this is probably an important question, after he found the truck, during that 911 call, did he ever mention that his buddy Sky is missing?
Not until the end of the conversation.
All right. But he did mention it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's move on to this. Matthew McCoy. Do you have any idea how it was determined that Matthew McCoy and his girlfriend stole that truck?
They just went by what Brewer had said.
So
that's my understanding.
Okay, so
Brewer said Matthew McCoy had stolen the truck. That's my understanding,
okay.
And they picked Matthew McCoy up on Grand Theft Auto charges after the fact.
Well, I guess we're wondering, how did Travis know that it was Matthew McCoy who stole the truck? Do you have any idea? Did he see it happen? Did Matthew McCoy, threaten Travis at some point in the past? Hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to steal your truck. Anything like that?
No, sir. I have no idea.
No idea. So somehow Travis knows that Matthew McCoy stole his truck, and but why? Why he didn't just call 911 when it actually happened, and knowing who did it? That's a little confusing. Why did he call 911 after the fact? Okay. And we have to remember that Matthew McCoy was not alone. He was with his girlfriend, and that's going to play an important role. So Matthew McCoy, when were he and his girlfriend caught?
I have no idea.
Okay. I'm going to guess they weren't, it wasn't outstanding for months. Would you say that they were, Matthew McCoy was tracked down within a few days?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. He was arrested. It was within a day or two.
All right, that's what I'm asking you. So the truck is found on the Saturday, and how soon after that do you think that Matthew McCoy and his girlfriend were taken into custody?
Like that Monday.
Okay. To your knowledge...
Sunday or Monday. I'm not sure on that.
All right, so fairly quickly. To your knowledge, at any time... did Matthew McCoy, has it ever gotten back to you, the reason that Matthew McCoy gave for stealing Travis's truck?
No, sir. Nobody's ever said.
Okay. So where were you, when do you find out, how do you find out that Sky is missing? Where were you? Who told you? Where were you? What was going on?
I did animal assisted therapy at FASAC, which was a children's detention center. I was there Saturday morning on the 4th. I finished at 12 o'clock at lunch and was pulling out of there in Meridian, Mississippi, when I got a phone call from his dad telling me that he had gotten the letter and what it said, and I said, call 911, I'm on my way. I got there around 3 o'clock, and he told me about the Bridges Road and all that. He had actually talked to Brewer.
Mm-hmm.
His father had called the number on that envelope.
All right. Okay.
And so when I got to, he called 911. When I got to, and I drove from Meridian to Bridges Road, was getting out of my car, and this was approximately about 3:30. And I was getting out of my car. I didn't even know it was a dead-end road. I just pulled up on Two Bridges Road, which is a red dirt road. Was getting out of my car, and I was going to go out there in the woods. And a deputy comes up the road, and he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm fixing to go out in these woods and find my son. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, my son is missing. And he said, there's nobody missing. And granted, they got the call at 1 a.m. or 1 in the morning. And this is at between 3 and 3:30. And he still doesn't know my son is missing. They never sent anybody out there. He said, there's nobody missing out here. Mm-hmm. And I said, yes, there are. And so he got on his radio and he called. And that's when he found out eventually that they were doing a missing persons report on him.
So when you say
but he did not know anything about it.
Okay. So when you say 3:30, do you mean in the afternoon of Saturday?
In the afternoon, yes.
Okay. This would have been the day that you were expecting Sky to come over and help you move?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you get this call. You find out this information. Travis, I guess, mentions that, it was out in Bridges Road. That's how you know to go out there. And while you're out there, this police officer's out there.
Yes, sir. He's coming up the road. And like I said, I didn't realize it was a dead-end road at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him about my son was missing. He gets on his radio. He said, nobody's been out here. There's no tracks. I said, sir, it's rained for 2 days. There's not going to be any tracks on a red dirt road. Then eventually he told me, he said, well, you don't even need to be out here.
So
I had to leave.
Okay, so would you say that it was a coincidence that you just happened to run into this police officer while you were out there?
Yes, sir.
All right, he just happened.
It was a sheriff's deputy.
All right, sheriff's deputy. Okay, so this sheriff's deputy, once again, your understanding is it's just coincidence that you ended up being on Bridges Road where Travis and Sky had been 24 hours before that, and this deputy is on the road too. He just happens to be there when you're there.
I know, yet they'd never seen, he didn't even know anybody was missing.
So he says.
And again, it was one.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
So
and
he
I
says.
heard him on the radio. He was on his radio in the car with the window rolled down.
Okay. I guess I'm trying to figure out the odds of you going out to Bridges Road, and, you know, it's a sheriff's deputy, so he would be responsible for the whole county. I don't know how many deputies they have on duty at one time. But it is kind of strange. You're out in Bridges Road, which is not that long of a road, and it's a dead end, and he just happens to be out there too.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I understand exactly.
Okay, so you're out there. You went out there by yourself, or you with other people? Did anybody else come out there to help you, or what?
No, sir. I was by myself.
Okay. When you heard the story that Sky would go search for this truck with Travis, did that sound reasonable to you?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to this. Obviously, you encounter the sheriff's deputy. Are there searches done at Bridges Road? Do they have any search parties? Any helicopters? Any planes? Anybody go out there looking for Sky on Bridges Road?
No, sir. They were still at his dad's house doing the missing persons report.
Mm-hmm. Have any searches? How many complete searches? How many searches have been done? Any around that time?
Yes, that Sunday.
Okay. And what went on there?
They brought helicopters in. They brought dogs and horses in. They said the horses, one of the horses got hurt, and they said they couldn't search one area out there. But they flew helicopters and planes. And the one thing I didn't understand, and I still don't understand, and you might can explain this to me, heat sensors. Heat sensors are not going to pick up anybody if they've been dead for a period of time. Correct?
You're probably right. Yeah.
They made this big thing out of they flew planes with heat sensors and this, that, and the other. And I was sitting there, I told my sister came. She was there by the time I got off of Bridges Road and got up to the sheriff's department. She was there. My sister came from Louisiana with her family.
Mm-hmm.
And she was there with me when the whole time all this was going on as well. But they did not start searching at 1 o'clock in the morning when they got that phone call.
Okay. So these searches were done. It sounds like they're fairly complete. It sounds like they're trying to do what they can. And in fact, we just had another disappearance on Unfound where similar searches were done with helicopters heat seeking, and those were unsuccessful as well. So they gave it a shot. Couldn't find anything. Did they find anything that could have proved that Sky was out there at all, except just by taking Travis and Amanda's word?
They took their word because they told us at the time that was all they had to go on.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. However, Travis did get arrested at some point in here. Do you know why?
They arrested him and Amanda both for paraphernalia being in their home. Gave them one of the highest bonds they've ever given on a misdemeanor.
Okay, and when did this...
the judge said, sir?
Please continue. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Because this was on Monday, because the judge believed that Travis did know what happened to Sky and where he was, so he set the bonds very high.
How is it that the police were in Travis's place anyway? Are we saying? I mean, are we saying that the police came over to talk to Travis about his truck or the disappearance, and he just, he knows the police are coming over, and he just leaves drug paraphernalia just lying around?
I have no idea.
Okay. All right, but he gets arrested.
All we were told on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we were told is they went to pick up both of them, and they got them on paraphernalia charges.
Okay. Now, all right, and so they bond. Do you know if Travis or Amanda ever spent any time in jail for that, or do you even know what happened with that?
They spent approximately a month.
Wow. Okay.
In jail.
All right. Now, though, I do have in my notes here that Travis, at some point, I don't know if it was right there before he got charged with anything or after, he was talking about Sky and women. When did this happen? Why did it happen?
He was talking to his dad about when his dad called, called the number when he got the note.
Okay.
His dad said that one thing I could say about Sky, man, he always got the good-looking women. He always had good-looking women. And I told his dad, I said, did you not understand he was talking in past tense? And he said, Stacy, we were all a mess during that first week.
Right. All right, so for some reason, Travis is talking to Sky's father about Sky being missing, and Travis wants to talk about how Sky could get women.
Could always got the good-looking women.
Yeah, right. Even
That's
whether
strange.
whether he's talking in the present tense or the past tense, that seems like a strange topic to bring up.
Really does.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So Travis, the police go over there. I guess he and Amanda just aren't very smart. They get charged with those crimes, and they ended up, like you said, spending a month in jail. All right, so let's now move on to this. So Sky is missing. They try to do a search for him. Of course, nothing turned up. The truck, Travis's truck, was found by Travis himself in the general area of Bridges Road. Matthew McCoy is caught. His girlfriend is caught, and we're going to talk about that point here in a moment. But Travis and Amanda, his girlfriend or wife, I think it's just girlfriend, but they get in trouble for drug paraphernalia. They're going to spend some time in jail, but Sky's still missing, and Travis is talking in the past tense, all those things that we've covered. Let's move on to this. Now, Matthew McCoy, Travis says that Matthew stole the truck along with Matthew's girlfriend. To your knowledge, did Matthew McCoy ever spend even one day in jail for stealing that truck?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. And 4.5 years later, once again, we're doing this interview on February 8th, 2021. And the accepted, I'm not saying we necessarily believe that, but the accepted disappearance date of Sky is June 3rd, 2016. So that time frame, 4.5 years. Has it ever been explained to you exactly how Matthew stole Travis's truck? Did he hotwire it? Did he get the keys? Did he have a spare set of keys? Has that ever been explained to you in 4.5 years?
No, sir, it has not.
All right, so the police haven't explained it to you. Travis hasn't explained it to you. Amanda hasn't explained it to you. Even Matthew or anybody else. Nobody's ever explained that to you.
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So that's still something that is very much up in the air, and maybe it's something that could cause people's minds to go in a couple different directions. So let's move on to this. Sky goes missing. Of course, I'm a little worried about the grandmother at this point, if he was taking care of her. How did she get through all of this? Being that he wasn't around, what happened there?
She was placed in a nursing home.
She was. Okay.
Yes.
Now, you told me, though, that you went over there, and you, I guess, to his grandmother's, and in Sky's room, his Bible was open, and why don't you tell that to the listeners? What did you see?
when they walked in Skyler's room, his Bible was on his bed. His bed was made up, and it was a verse highlighted. It was Joshua 1:9, and the Bible was highlighted. I've always thought that verse had something to do with this, that he knew, because it said, I don't know if you're familiar with Joshua 1:9, but it has, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. That was on his bed, and like I said, that verse, Joshua 1:9, was highlighted. My son's checkbook was on the other side of the room, laying on his dresser. The stack and several other Christian books were on his nightstand.
And you are saying that when you went in there, that the Bible was open to that. It wasn't like you just opened it up and happened to see that verse was highlighted. The book was open to that page.
It was open to that page, and that verse was highlighted on that page.
Okay.
His bed was made up, and the Bible was opened up on the bed.
Okay. And you said that the checkbook, you talked about his brother's checkbook was there as well, and we've talked about how the money was all still there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything unusual that you noticed? Anything missing from his room? Anything that looked weird at all?
No, sir.
All right. We have to remember, though, that the way the official story is, though, that Sky spent that night before June 3rd, he spent from June 2nd to June 3rd at Travis's, not at home with his grandmother. I have to tell you, that seems a little weird for a woman who could not, I mean, she's 90-something. I think any 90-year-old, no matter who he or she would be, would need some sort of care. So we're to understand that the grandmother was home by herself into that night, into the next day.
Well, she was supposed to be back that morning.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so so I guess what I'm saying.
Now his dad.
Please.
His dad lived right up the road as well. His dad lived up the road. Now he did not care for her. Skyler did, but if Skyler needed him, he would go over there if she needed him.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to this.
Yeah, it was very strange.
All right, we'll move on to this. Sky's phone. Now, the funny thing is that he is missing, but his phone is not. Where was his phone?
His phone, his shirt, and his cigarettes were found on the back seat of Amanda Morris's car.
Okay. So,
and if you're pinging a truck that's in the woods, Skyler's an avid hunter. He would not take his shirts off in June to go out into the woods in a pair of shorts. He would not leave without his phone and leave his phone in the back seat if they're pinging a truck.
Well, we're not going to get into what he wouldn't do and what I don't want to get into theorizing here. All right, we don't want to do that. But I will say, so what we're led to believe, what it seems like, is that Sky, they all went out to this Bridges Road, and Sky and Travis got out to go look for this truck, but Sky left his phone in the car. That's what it looks like.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. And his shirt. He's taking his shirt off.
Okay. Have you ever seen Sky's phone records for either late June 2nd or into June 3rd?
They actually did not get into his phone until about 6 months ago.
Wow. And this is very important for June 3rd. Any texts, any calls to or from Sky's phone on June 3rd?
No, sir. No, I don't know that they found. I don't know what they found on it.
You don't know. It's not a no. It's. All right, so you don't know.
No, sir.
All right.
They said the last phone call he made was to his grandmother.
But that was the day before.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who was paying for Sky's phone, himself?
He was on his brother's cell phone plan, but now he paid for his phone.
All right. Did your son, the brother, did he not try to get the records himself?
Yes, sir, we did try to we got some of the records. We could see some of it, but whatever was in the cloud, we could not get into.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to worry about what's in the cloud, me personally. I'm just asking you about good old-fashioned phone records. Calls in, calls out, text in,
Yes.
text out. Did you, being that he was on his brother's plan, his brother would have access, I think, to Sky's phone records, the paper.
He did. He could see some of it, but Sky had changed the password on his phone, and we could not get into the phone. Now, he could see on the records up until a certain point, but what they were interested in was whatever was on that phone from the time he had changed the passcode. Because we couldn't, it's an iPhone 4S, and that's the only that's the only phone that Apple makes that they don't own the security rights to.
I guess what I'm saying, maybe I need to put this a different way, Stacy. If they're on each other's plan, all right, then, for example, I have T-Mobile. Although I haven't ever checked my records for a long time because I really don't need to, but I could go online and I could put in a name and password and see my phone records for everybody I've texted and called going way back, probably a year and a half. Did your other son, did he not do that?
Yes, sir, we did do that, but there was still stuff that we couldn't see because we didn't have the passcode to get into the phone. And after you try so many times, the phone shuts down and locks. That phone was even sent to Quantico.
I guess that's not.
I know what you're saying. I don't know.
I'm going to dispute that is the truth. That I realize you're not going to be able to read his like Messenger, like Facebook Messenger messages. Obviously, you're not going to be anything he's doing on Instagram or anything else. That's why I'm just asking you about calls and texts.
Yeah, we could see the calls. We could see calls.
All right.
And they could see text where he texted me. They could see all that, but they were interested in anything else that where he had changed the password.
Well, I can understand that, and that's great. All I'm asking you is, are there any, once again, looking at his records, any calls or texts which you would not need a passcode to get because you could just look on regular good old-fashioned records, phone records?
Yes, sir.
Any texts or calls on June 3rd?
There were not.
Okay.
There were none on that day.
All right, thank you. All right. Let's move on to Travis's phone. That's all right. Let's move on to this, Travis's phone. Now, we have to remember, Travis has claimed that they were going to track down his truck because his phone was in his truck when it got stolen, and they were going to use Sky's phone with some app program or something that they were going to be able to then find Travis's phone, and then by finding Travis's phone, that they would find Travis's truck. However, and we know that, and of course we know that Travis's truck was found. However, where was Travis's phone found?
It was found on the morning of June the 10th because they were told that somebody had thrown the phone out of the vehicle. And it was found not in his yard, but at the entrance to that neighborhood.
All right, so it seems...
on the side of the road.
All right, so it seems what you're saying is the truck was out there on Route 20, whereas the phone, Travis's phone, was right down the street.
Yes, sir.
And who admitted throwing the phone out of the truck?
To my understanding, it was a female.
All right, Matthew McCoy, the woman that was with Matthew McCoy. And it was she ended up telling this to the police?
That's to my understanding. That's my understanding.
Okay. So I got a question for you. It's a theoretical question, but this might not be obvious to some people, so I'm just going to ask it. I have a question then. So then how did Travis ping his phone to the search location out there in Bridges Run when his phone was just right down the street from his place the whole time?
I agree, and we've never heard anything since June the 10th of 2016.
Okay.
When they found the phone.
All right.
We've never heard anything.
So once again, Travis says that they were out on Bridges Road because that's where his phone was pinging, whereas his phone was found right, maybe a couple hundred yards down the street from his house.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Has Travis, to your knowledge, in the last 4.5 years, ever? I mean, I'm guessing he wouldn't tell you, but anything ever gotten back to you through the grapevine as to how he could ever explain this?
No, sir.
All right. And I guess the stumper of this all is that he couldn't have tracked his phone, but on the other hand, they did end up in the general area of where Travis's truck was found.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's a heck of a coincidence. Okay. Lie detector tests. Who took them? Who passed? Who failed?
They said that Amanda Morris passed hers, which was Travis Brewer's girlfriend or wife. They said Travis Brewer showed deception on the question of, do you know what happened to Skyler?
Okay. But and so Amanda took the test too?
Yes, sir.
All right, and how did she do again?
She passed it. It's what they told us. They said he showed deception, but Travis Brewer showed deception on his.
Okay, so she seemingly passed hers with flying colors, but he had a problem with that particular question, and then maybe that's a little hard to understand, being that they were seemingly together the whole time. So that's a little confusing. Okay, but he did, polygraph test, not 100%, not sure what to make of that. But they were
But now he dropped her. Yeah.
Please.
I don't know that she knew at the time. I honestly don't know that she knew at the time what was happening. I think Brewer did.
Well, we don't know. We don't know what happened. But what we do know is that there is video of Travis being out there with Amanda on that road that day. Right?
Yes, sir. But when he came back out there the second time, she was not in the car with him.
Mm-hmm. But she would have been in there the first time when allegedly Sky and Travis went off into the woods.
Yes, sir.
All right. So she could testify truthfully. Yeah, Sky went into the woods, did not come back. If that's, I'm guessing that's what was asked. Okay. All right, but maybe there was something else going on here that in which she didn't know about, which we're going to leave that open. We don't want to theorize too much. All right. Now here is where the title of this episode, The Lost Day, comes into effect, and it is something that is very strange, and we're going to tie this all together here. We remember, if you'll remember, listeners, early in the conversation, we talked about this video from a convenience store that on that day, early 9:30, roughly that morning of June 3rd, that Sky and Travis and Amanda's car are seeing this particular convenience store, and if you want to look it up, it's the Shell Station on Greenfield Road in, what is it, Brandon, Mississippi? Brandon?
Yes, sir.
Brandon,
yes,
Mississippi.
Sir.
All right, that's where this video was taken. But there's a problem, isn't it? Why don't you tell the listeners what the problem is with that video?
The video, when you look at it, at the bottom of it, the date says June the 2nd. Yet, when they pulled the video, which was Monday the 6th, the date is correct. So...
So, are you saying
we
that
were told that
when did you get to see the video?
On Monday, on the 6th, June the 6th, when they pulled the video that morning, they called the family in.
Okay. And
we had questioned. What now?
What I was going to ask you was, so what you're saying is when they showed you that video, June 6th, which was a Monday, when you're looking at the video and it's playing and you're seeing Sky on the screen, you're seeing Travis on the screen, you're saying, like, as most videos have, in the lower right-hand corner or one corner of the video, it didn't say June 3rd, 2016. It actually said June 2nd, 2016.
Yes, sir.
So then what you're saying is this whole timeline could be totally messed up. That they were not at that convenience store on the 3rd and then went out to Bridges Road. That video could have been from the day before.
Could have been, yes, sir.
All right, so we're missing So essentially we're missing 24 hours, and then we have to add in this to what you've already talked about, no texts or calls to no use on Sky's phone.
Yes, sir.
All right. How have do the police own up to this? Do they notice the error? Do they say anything about this? Have they ever been able to explain that? What's the status of that?
They just, when I questioned that, they said, well, because the reason it originally came up was the video when they were going, that the house had the video on it. When they were going up the road that day, supposedly on the 3rd, you could not see anybody. You couldn't see Skyler in the car.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't tell who was in the car. So we were like, how do y'all know he was even in that car? You can't see anybody. And then on Monday morning, this video pops up from this convenience store.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when they brought the family in to watch it, they were all in there. Sky was in there. Travis Brewer was in there, and Travis Brewer's little girl was in the store, and they were buying food, and getting back in the car. Well, my question was, when they showed us this video, it says June the 2nd on the video, yet it's correct on the day y'all pulled it, which would have been the 6th. Because it also showed us the day they pulled it.
Okay.
And I asked, well, how do you know that, what the video's wrong? And they said, no, this happens all the time with those videos. And I was like, yeah, but if it was correct on Monday, it should have been correct on that Friday as well, if that was the day, But they never explained it. They just said that happens all the time.
Okay, but what you're saying is that you think it's correct. And because when you went to look at the video player at that convenience store was correct on June 6th. It said June 6th.
Yes, it said June 6th. We got to see the date. It shows the date they pulled it, and it shows the date that Skyler was in the store.
All right. So this kind of ruins the timeline, at least a little bit. In fact, now we're going to talk about something else that adds to that could lead us to believe that certainly the video was off. And I'll just do the math for you on this, Stacy. I did this on Google, and the distance from the Shell station to Bridges Road, Shell station in Brandon, Mississippi, to Bridges Road in Rankin County, Mississippi, according to Google, following the speed limit, is 14 minutes. But according to the videos that you've seen between the convenience store and this video that was on this person's house out on Bridges Road, of course we have to figure, hopefully that they're at least close to being synced up with the same, telling the same time with at least a minute or two. How long did it take them to get from the convenience store out to Bridges Road?
They told us it would take 10 minutes.
So, following the speed limit is 14 minutes, and it seemingly just took them 10 minutes to travel that distance, which means they were going 4 minutes faster, which means they were traveling roughly, 40% faster than the speed limit to get there.
You would have gotten the ticket through that area, going through there.
Okay. So there also seems to be kind of not an impossibility, but an improbability that they could get from that Shell station to Bridges Road in 10 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I guess the way I would explain it to the listeners is that, if you're traveling across the United States from New York to L.A., it would not be surprising that, you'd be off by 4 minutes. That's very easy to understand, to lengthen or shorten your drive, because, of course, the drive is going to take like 3 days, and 4 minutes might get gained or lost somewhere in there. But when you're only traveling a distance that's a few miles, to try to make up 4 minutes in that amount of time is almost impossible. So, but the police, I guess to this day, want to have everybody believing, yeah, they really did travel from that Shell to Bridges Road in 9 or 10 minutes. Whereas really, you look at it realistically, especially on a Friday morning, people going to work, very busy. If it was the middle of the night, maybe they might be able to speak. It seems like an improbability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let's just talk about that house video one more time. That when Travis went out there on Friday night, you said that he just seemingly went in and left.
Now this was all right, they came out of the road. He took Amanda and the child home.
Mm-hmm.
And then supposedly he came back out there, and it was during the daytime. He came back out there, and he went right up that road, and he came right back out. And they looked at that's the one thing they couldn't figure out was, you didn't have time to get out of the vehicle and even search.
Mm-hmm. Did Travis ever claim that he actually searched out there?
He told them he went back out there and looked for him.
Okay. All right.
And they said that's the one thing they couldn't figure out.
All right, and I can understand why. I can't figure it out either. Okay, so let's talk about June 2nd for a moment. Did anyone besides Travis see Sky that evening or night of June 2nd? Has anybody ever come forward to say, you know what, yeah, I did see Sky on the evening/night of June 2nd?
No, sir.
Okay. June 3rd. Anybody report seeing Sky that day besides Travis and I guess Amanda? Anybody?
No, sir.
All right. We also have to remember, as you've talked about the phone records, no calls or texts, no use of Sky's phone on the morning of June 3rd. Okay. Now, you've talked to the police, and we usually don't do theories. I don't talk theories, my theories or my guest theories on the program, but sometimes we do talk police theories. You've been talking to the police for 4.5 years about your son's disappearance. Have the police ever offered up their own theory as to what happened to Sky?
No, sir.
No. Okay. So they haven't brought up, once again, I'm sure they know that he was in jail for 2 years, even though it was many years before this happened. Maybe they might even have some records that he might have joined a gang while he was in jail, even though it doesn't seem like he had anything to do with that afterwards. But I don't know how easy it is to get out of that life. I don't know if they easily let
one
guys.
of the things,
Please.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been told was that he was asked to do something he refused to do. No, that's just a theory, but
All
that's
right.
one of the things
Okay,
that I have heard.
All right, did this come from somebody in a position of law enforcement, or is this just somebody's theory?
Yes, sir, it did come from somebody that was in law enforcement.
All right, and what was that theory?
And I mean, they just said this is one of the stories that they've heard time again was that he was asked to do something he refused to do.
Okay. Now, the reason I'm asking is because there is a rumor out there, and because it's out there, I have to ask you about it, that Sky might have stolen drugs or money from a drug dealer at some point, and this disappearance has something to do with that. You've heard this?
Yes, sir, I have. But when the money came to in effect, as far as why would you steal something when you had whatever money you wanted?
Mm-hmm. From his brother.
That doesn't make any sense. If you just owe somebody $300 or $400, he could ask for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's serious. That's the and the thing that we run into now, from like everybody says, everything's hearsay.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so long now, and you know yourself, if you don't find somebody at first, the odds of finding them are not very good.
Well, I cannot argue with that. On the other hand, as disappearances get older, more information, can come out. And with more information, in a way, it does, you get more perspective as well. You gain a very, better understanding of what might have happened. And that's why I'm asking you, even though we don't do theories on the program, that the police have told you that this could have been something where Sky was asked to do something maybe by this gang that he got affiliated with in prison, and he didn't want to do it, and so this was revenge.
But the thing is, on the gangs and stuff, you always hear stuff about they're not going to keep something like this. If it was done, and he did steal something, and it was done, they would want it out there. They would want everybody to see it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not. They said that's usually, this is not like that.
Okay. Of course it's not. Yeah, we don't know what happened.
Second guess.
Right.
Yeah, so that makes you second guess that whole theory as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. We just wanted to say we know that you have your theories, and of course I've had a chance to think about that as well, but we don't talk about those in the program. We want people to have their own ideas on this, just presenting the facts, but we do sometimes talk about what the police have said to families. Okay. Now, there was something else. Once again, I just have to ask once again because it's out there. Travis had said that he and Sky at some point, whether on June 2nd or June 3rd before they went out there, might have done methamphetamine before this. Could you believe that might be true or not?
Well, that's the one thing that when we watched the video that was pulled from the store, we had been told that as well. And one thing you're gonna know if they're doing it. You're gonna know when you see them. They were in there my son was in there buying food, buying a candy bar for this little girl, buying her a drink. He was fine.
Mm-hmm.
He was not messed up in the video is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And that's the one thing that threw us off because we're like, what's happened?
Okay. But we also have to remember there might be a chance that video was from June 2nd as well. But the way you're looking at that video, what you see of your son, it did not seem to hit you like he was high or anything else.
He was not.
Okay. What have Amanda, Travis, Matthew's girlfriends, I'm not saying you're keeping tabs on them every day, but what have they done with their lives over the last 4 years?
Well, I mean, I don't really know.
Okay.
I know Matthew McCoy has been, like the sheriff's department was talking about it on Crime Watch Daily. Said he had been in and out of jail. How many times was it? Like 40 times?
Many, yes.
And he had been in and out of jail. And I'm like, how does somebody get in and out of jail in that period of time? Because that Crime Watch Daily video came out a year and a half ago. So he had been in and out of jail that many times since Sky came up missing. I found that odd as well.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as Travis Brewer and all of them, I pray every day for answers. And I'm a firm believer in you're going to get what, in the end, somehow or the other. But I don't see how they're keeping this secret like this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I honestly don't.
Of course. What have of course you have a daughter, you have another son. How have they handled this? What have they said to you about this? Do some of these things not ring true to them as well? How would you explain it?
Well, I mean, it's changed every one of us because we miss Scott every day. My daughter feels like nobody is looking for him. I mean, it's like you get angry because you have no answers. You have no closure. You have no nothing. And everybody else is going on with their life. And the ones that didn't know everything about or know where he is, they're walking around going on with their lives. They're spending Christmas with their families. and we have nothing. So it's changed. It has definitely changed our lives.
Mm.
We miss him.
Yeah.
I even listen to videos on my phone just to hear his voice.
You have videos of him of doing what?
I do. I have videos of him and my daughter, us going to a family reunion, him talking and singing. We have videos of ball games. And you just sit there and listen to him because you just want to hear his voice.
Right. Yeah.
I know how hard it is to keep a secret. People, it's just human nature. You can't keep a secret. You can't keep a secret. So how many people know what happened?
Yeah.
And just won't come forward and say something. Because I'm a firm believer the ones that know what happened are just as guilty as the ones that did.
Mm-hmm.
He's missed my daughter having her children. He's missed my son having his. And he loved children.
Yeah. And he had one of his own and he didn't even know it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I should ask you this.
So many things we were supposed to do. What? I'm sorry.
I should ask you this. Being that he did have this girlfriend at the time, once again, I'm not mentioning her name, has she ever offered up her own theory as to being that she seemingly knew Sky very well? Has she ever offered up her own theory? I'm guessing that if she believed that he had ever stolen anything from anybody, she would tell you. Has she ever offered up her own theory when this happened at all?
No, sir. She's like us. I mean, you've been told. I mean, I've been told so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
And she has, you just sit there and you wonder. You're like, how could this happen? How could this happen? It's something that doesn't need to happen.
Okay.
And I was never aware of how many people are missing until this happened to us.
Yeah, that is true. That is certainly true.
Okay. I mean, it's just...
Mm-hmm.
You pray every day that something's going to happen that day, that this is going to be... You get your hopes up that something's going to happen, and everything falls through again. They find somebody, you get your hopes up thinking that maybe that's yours.
Right.
And it's not. But at least it's closure for some families.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the times that they thought they had found something, it led to finding someone else's child. It wasn't Sky, but it was somebody else's. They thought it was going to be Sky, but it was somebody else's. So at least that lead did lead to bringing closure to some families.
Stacy, do you have a website or Facebook page or whatever else set up for Sky's?
We do. It's Help Bring Sky Home Safely.
Say that one more time if you could.
Help Bring Sky Home Safely.
All right, that is the page on Facebook. Okay, and I will, by the time everybody hears our voices for this interview, for this episode, I will have linked, of course, to that so people can share it, like it, become a member on the page. And as I've stated, I'm going to be doing a YouTube video for this disappearance as well to explain some of these locations and where Travis's truck was found, the Shell Station, Bridges Road, etc. Okay. Stacy, any final words before we complete this interview?
Just, if anybody knows anything, please, on anybody's family member, please let us know. And thank you, Ed, for showing an interest in doing what you do every day. I know that can't be easy either.
I know this is a very difficult topic, so we cover on Unfound. I've been doing it 4.5 years, but I want you to know, I think the listeners know that, my assistants certainly know that this is tough, but I enjoy doing it. I think that this I think I have something to offer, with my mind and everything, and I'm just trying to do the best I can, and these are very difficult circumstances. Very difficult.
Yeah, you're helping a lot of families.
I appreciate that.
You're helping a lot of families, and your staff is as well.
Well, thank you. But Stacy, it's been good to get to know you. I can tell you that we're going to keep in touch, and this is just the beginning of us knowing each other. And until the day that Sky is found, deceased or alive, want to continue to help you. If we get any tips, you'll be the first to know. And if there's anything that my program can do for you, I hope you'll let us know. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I appreciate you being on this episode of Unfound.
I appreciate you doing this for Sky. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that was my interview with Stacy Humble, mother of Joseph Skyler Burnley. I thank her for joining me and all of you on the program. As I stated during the interview, you can now find a video on the Unfound Podcast Channel on YouTube, where I show the locations, routes, and times important to this disappearance, with in-depth analysis mixed in. To get more of an understanding of Sky and his situation at the time, Stacy had his girlfriend call me. We spoke for about 30 minutes. I think she was trying to be helpful, and she said she would send me a couple messages that she exchanged with Sky at the time, along with a letter he wrote her. However, his girlfriend never did. In addition, Stacy tried to call the girlfriend after I spoke to her, but the girlfriend would not answer the phone and did not get back to Stacy, at least at the time of the recording of this episode. So, I don't know what to think. In general, Stacy and Sky's girlfriend have similar ideas, in that they believe foul play is the reason for his disappearance. However, I can't help but think some of the things the girlfriend told me may be just her opinion or rumors and not facts. However, what she did say about her and Sky's relationship is that they were kind of on the outs at the time, but she said that she believes they would have gotten back together had Sky not disappeared. And I want to state for the record, I believe Sky's girlfriend is totally innocent regarding his disappearance. Now for my summation. It is a fairly significant revelation Stacy made about the convenience store video, saying that it was from June 2nd and not June 3rd. It seems, however, that the police are satisfied with the store's explanation. Stacy is not, but I'm not sure what can be done about it now. Yet, you should consider quite a few points as you contemplate who is correct. First, you will remember that Sky's shirt was found in Amanda's car. I verified with Stacy that the shirt was the one Sky was wearing in that convenience store video. That would seem to mean the video was taken on June 3rd. However, Sky may not have had any other clothes with him at Travis's. Thus, he could have been wearing the same shirt on June 2nd. Point number 2. Even though it seems they couldn't have driven from the convenience store to Bridges Road in 10 minutes, it could be that both video systems' clocks aren't correct. If they differ from each other by just 4 minutes, with the store camera being 4 minutes fast, or the home one being 4 minutes slow, either of those errors, when corrected, would then add up to 14 minutes, the time indicated by Google to travel between the two places. So there could be a lot of wiggle room there. Third, or point number 3, and this is probably the most complicated point, if the store video really was taken on June 2nd, would Travis and Amanda, if something happened to Sky either later that day or early on June 3rd, would those two really be aware and smart enough to say, hey, we were seen on that store video yesterday with Sky. We got to go out to Bridges Road today and make it look like we went straight from the store to there. And say that Sky got lost out there and that he didn't die at our house. Would Travis and Amanda really be smart enough to do that? And we have to remember one more thing. There is no way those two could have known that the convenience store camera's date was off by a day. The fourth point, and this is probably the most peculiar one, if the store video was taken on June 3rd, it doesn't seem like Travis and Sky were in a hurry that morning. Both of them going into the store, buying some items. It looks like a normal store stop that all of us do almost every day. Simply put, is that how you would be acting if you were on the trail of the person who stole your vehicle? And the last point, I think this is number 5, does it make sense that Amanda and her child would go along with Sky and Travis to find the truck? If this was truly a stolen vehicle situation, why would the two guys allow a mother and her child to come along? Were they not worried that something of a violent nature might happen if they found the truck and whoever stole it? We also can't forget this. None of this accounts for the actual truck theft, the circumstances of which are still very unclear. In fact, as I was doing the video supplemental for this episode, I realized the following. Law enforcement told Stacy that Travis's truck was on I-20 going toward, but going toward Hines Community College. Of course, they're taking Travis's word on this because he was the one who found his truck, presumably with Amanda tagging along. But the following may be important in your calculations of Sky's case. That college is a full 12.5 miles from Bridges Road. What I'm saying is there is still a lot to be discovered after 4.5 years. I just hope the answers to these questions over all these days haven't been lost. I'll leave the theorizing up to you. And that's the program. If you found it informative, please go to the app that you use to listen to Unfound and give this podcast a nice review. I thank you for listening. I'm Ed Densel, and you've been listening to Unfound.